Welcome back to our community. Susie Thomas here with you, and also with Maria Hagee. She is President and CEO of the United Way of Greater Stark County, and you're talking about merging the different areas just before the break. Catastrophe is no respecter of persons, is it? As you were talking about, some areas were not being served. This way, there is a way to be able to help even those families who are used to being the helpers, who every once in a while need to be on the receiving end. Can you address that a bit?
Sure. And, we saw that in this campaign, people that in the past have been very strong supporters of United Way because of changes with their employment, either through downsizing or retirement, for example. Now we're the ones calling and saying, I need some direction, I need some assistance. And sometimes it's health related, that all of a sudden, you have to be a caretaker when you are used to being very independent.
Yeah.
And so that's what's important, that there's no one size fits all. As a nonprofit, we have to be mobile to identify different opportunities for families. That being said, sometimes there just isn't a particular program or a particular agency. And that's where our volunteers, for instance, at 211 are so creative when a family calls. Because maybe sometimes it's disappointing to hear there's no program there that can serve that can meet that need. But sometimes it's a relief, too, to say, okay, I know now there's nothing there, so let's brainstorm. And maybe if we can work on a different part, that will free up money to work in this area. Or maybe if we can find some supports here, it may not solve the problem, but it may give you the relief you need. So our 211 information and referral that United Way funds, it's a service of United Way. It's free. It's open 24/7, 365 days a year for people to call if they have a question, they want to get involved, they have a need. We keep a very extensive database of different programs, United Way and non-United Way, governmental or non-governmental. It really runs the whole gamut of resources out in the community.
And another great reason to do United Way this way, rather than agency. If somebody doesn't fall into those specific perimeters, then sorry, we can't help you. But this way, to be able to take program, and someone who's familiar with all of the different programs, we can combine this, and the main thing, the goal is to help. Who is United Way for?
Excellent question. United Way is for everyone. United Way is for Greater Stark County. One of the roles that United Way serves is a convener of bringing individuals together to talk about a bigger community issue, or a community problem, or a community opportunity, because we do not represent one agenda. We represent everybody's agenda. And so through the building blocks, we're able to bring individuals together. And one of the nice things about United Way is because of our relationship with business in this community, small business, small personal business, to global companies, we take that very seriously, and we recognize that you earn those kind of relationships, and we don't take those lightly. And so the fact that we can pick up the phone and call a CEO, call a government official, call a neighborhood representative together and say, let's come together and talk about the bigger picture here. That's what your United Way does every day in this community. And so it really is about breaking down silos and valuing and respecting what everyone brings to the table, and how do we collectively make our community stronger.
Yeah. Again, you're in one of those jobs where you would like to see yourself be out of business.
Yes.
That's kind of difficult, isn't it, trying to work your way out of a job. But what do you see in our community as far as the need? Is it growing? Are things getting better? Do we see trends in more of a need in an area that we have not seen in the past, and maybe less in an area that we have seen more of in the past?
You know, it's interesting when we talk about that, because there's what we call met needs and unmet needs. And sometimes, and that's why our volunteers take this work very seriously, because sometimes if they'll be reviewing something, they'll say, oh, well, that's taken care of. We don't need to worry about that. But if we don't take care of it, then it goes from a met need to an unmet need. Yeah. And so it's a very delicate balance of looking at the needs in the community. So what we really try to do, along with others, is look at emerging trends, as well as programs, in our case, as a funder, programs that we know are moving the needle like Spark. So to give you an example, when you look at the health building block, and I'm sure you've probably had representatives from the health department here, because they're right next door to you.
That's right.
Is the whole issue of infant mortality.
Yes.
And the unbelievably high number of children who are not seeing their first birthday in Stark County, and especially children from families of color. That's not okay, and we've got to get our arms around that. And that's a perfect example of, we're starting to have dialogue. We have people from the health department sitting on the Impact Council talking about what can we be doing as a community to reduce those numbers down. And United Ways actually across the state are having those conversations also, because sometimes you can partner with others and find best practices in other communities. So, that's an example when you ask me, what do we see as a trend or what do we see as needs?
Yes.
Infant mortality is definitely an area. We're very fortunate that in this community also that we have systems that work very closely together. For example, in our care team. Care team is a partnership of United Way, of the Stark Mental Health and Alcohol Board, of Job and Family Services, Stark County Family Court, Education Service Center, Stark County Family Council. You have a group of systems who all invest money and all work with families and kids coming together once a month to have the bigger discussion of how do we make sure our kids have the supports they need to graduate from school. So United Way says, well, we can bring to the table funding for family support specialists and funding for care team staff. And the mental health board will say, well, we can provide funding and supports in the schools to make sure kids have counseling and supports they need, because superintendents will tell you kids today have a lot of mental health challenges and what we call family support 211 kind of challenges. Where do these families go to get the supports they need? And so what we do is we say, we are really blessed in this community to have incredible schools and incredible teachers who live it every single day and want nothing but the best for their kids, and they do a tremendous job. But again, sometimes life gets in the way, and those families and those students have challenges. So a system coming together, collectively partnering, we have moved care teams so far down the path of success because it's that community conversation I keep talking about. It really is about bringing people together to look at the bigger picture.
Yeah. Again, talking about the fact that problems are not a respecter of persons, a drug issue right now, teen suicide issue right now, hitting families of high income level. Yes. You're addressing these kinds of things?
We are. And, to your point, it's not about zip codes there.
No.
You can have the most affluent school to the school that maybe has really high free and reduced lunch. And kids have problems, and it doesn't matter what their zip code is. They may have different ways of dealing with those problems. But our kids today, some of them really struggle, and it's really important that these supports are there in place to help them.
We still have an opportunity to join with you, partner with you, and begin to fund these wonderful things that are addressing these issues in our community. Talk to me about the Above and Beyond Challenge Grant.
I would love to talk about that. When we wrapped up our public campaign wraps in December, but United Way's fiscal year goes through the end of March. And so behind the scenes, we're still working this year's current campaign under the leadership of Bill Shivers. And Bill and his campaign cabinet just did an incredible job, but we came up a little bit short. We're about $260,000 from goal. So the repository reached out and threw out a challenge grant to the community, and stepping up to partner with the repository was PPI Graphics, the Canton Chamber Regional Commerce, and Huntington Bank.
Mm-hmm.
And so they threw out a challenge to small companies, individuals, large companies, and said, if you have already given, we really, really appreciative of that. If you could find $5,000 more, it would be huge.
Yeah.
And if you haven't given, if you are a company that hasn't given or hasn't run a workplace campaign, if you could look in your budget, your marketing budget, your entertainment budget, printing budget, $5,000, it makes all the difference in the world, because we were looking for 60 companies to come forward with a challenge like that, because that will get us gap to goal. And
Great.
That's going to make sure that we continue to fund really high-quality programs for the kids. So we've had about 25 companies come forward so far. Thank you very much to all of them. The repository has an above and beyond little ad that they put in the paper on the front page, and so each of those companies have been recognized. So if you run into one of them, please say thank you for their community stewardship and leadership for Stark County. But there are still lots of opportunities left for the above and beyond, and so we're hoping if people haven't given yet to this year's campaign that's wrapping up, they would consider that gift, because truly it's all about putting those dollars toward education, income, and health.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so listeners who have their small business, I know, would love to participate. What's the next step? What do they do? How do they contact you? What is the best way, best practices of getting their employees to join together here and be able to get their portion, their $5,000 to you to contribute towards that?
They can do it a variety of ways. They can go online to the United Way website at www.unitedwaystark.org, and there's forms there. They can call the United Way offices at 330-491-0445, 491-0445. We will happily take that pledge over the telephone. Or they can call me directly at the same phone number and chat with me about how this works, and I can be more than happy to answer any questions they might have.
Awesome. All right, let's do that. Let's make sure we follow up on that. And want to also remind everyone, if you need help, it's not 911. I mean, certainly if you need to call 911, call 911. But you have a 211 number.
Correct.
And that is for whom? Anybody that is needing any kind of
Anybody
service.
to find out about services. You might be laid off and want to know what next steps are. Maybe you have a loved one at home who needs some senior care. Where do you get assistance there? I had a senior call me one day who said, I have snakes under my front porch. How do I get rid of them? So we try to be full service to everybody, but
that
we
is
don't
full
have
service.
we don't have the info. We'll try to find it for you.
That's so awesome. Maria Hagee, thank you so much for joining us. Maria Hagee, President and CEO of the United Way of Greater Stark County. Thank you so much for joining us today on Our Community.